from Central Kentucky's WCYN studios. You're listening to Quarantainment, a live entertainer's response to COVID-19. Each week, we interview industry professionals from around the world and gain insights into how they're coping with the adverse effects of the coronavirus and creatively adapting to the new normal. Without any further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome to the proverbial stage award-winning illusionist, escape artist, actor, your host, and creator of the Quarantainment podcast. This is Reed Masterson.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Quarantainment, the socially distant podcast. I'm Reed Masterson, and this is episode 4. On this week's episode, I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing, let's just say he's a professional clown, ringmaster, acrobat, juggling variety artist, and one of the most physically hilarious people I've met in a very long time. He's a former Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey circus entertainer. It is my pleasure to introduce you to none other than Jim Walton. Hey, Jim, how's it going, man?
Thank you so much for having me here, Reed. I really appreciate it. I just checked my PayPal account. Thank you for that. I appreciate it, because that's the only reason why I would do this. No, I appreciate it. I hope you're doing great. I hope you're being safe, and I hope everyone else out there is being safe. I am disappointed that I'm your fourth guest. I should have been first, but I thank you.
Yeah, you know, it's the delay in response time, you know, from Facebook Messenger just seems to make a difference there.
No, it's been an interesting time for guys like us. You know, I know we do a ton of stuff and tours and you know,
did
look at all your stuff. But you know, you're on that, you know, that forward momentum, and you're going and you're going and you're going, and then all of a sudden it just comes to a stop. It's like, well, what do you do now? How do you adapt? How do you pivot? And hey, the phone's not going to ring off the hook right now, so.
Not for bringing in money anyways. Like I said before we started, my phone rings quite a bit, but it's for cancellation. So it's, well, at least they're still calling me, I guess, you know. It's nice to talk to somebody once in a while.
Yeah. Well, I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, and I work with a company here called Liquid Sky, and we do a lot of high-end events, and so far we've had 20 high-end events canceled. Circus school I was supposed to run, that canceled. I work for the Atlanta Braves doing juggling and stuff for them, and that the whole season's been canceled. So yeah, it's an interesting time. So.
That's my words exactly. It's a very interesting time, and it's It's super unpredictable, and that's the scary part for us so far is just we just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone what's happening today. So it's
that's the scary. There's no end point. It's just, you know, you get updates every day, and you know who's right, who's wrong, the social media, and you know you get all these rules and things sent at you, and it's just you got to pick and choose and be smart, and you know make the right decisions and keep yourself safe and your family safe.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So, for those of the listening audience and the viewing audience, you know, this is broadcast live on Facebook as well as WCYN 101.3 FM here in Central Kentucky. You can also listen to the replay, watch the replay on Facebook, listen to the replay on all major podcast networks, and but so for all those people out there listening or watching, we you and I met back in. What was that, March? Or no, God, I don't know. It's the February.
Groundhog Day. Around Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Or a little before, I'm not sure. 'Cause there's a juggling festival every year that they
down in Atlanta.
Called the Groundhog Juggling Festival.
So we met down there, and I saw you perform this crazy, funny, kind of off-the-cuff act that was thrown together last minute, and I thought it was amazing. So like that's I've watched the replay on YouTube, so you all should check that out. Yeah. But for those of the people out there, I mean, you've done a lot of things in your career, so give us a little insight on how you got started, what you've done, what you're doing, all that good stuff.
Well, I basically got started as a young lad. I was I got into theater. So I grew up going, I had a wonderful theater teacher who encouraged me, and it was an outlet coming from a broken home and such. So it was a great outlet for me. And I just got better and better at it, and took, classes over the years. And then I just so happened to do a production of Barnum in a dinner theater somewhere in Delaware, because I'm originally from New Jersey. So I did a production of Barnum, and it just so happens that one of the cast members was a former Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey circus clown. And I always loved doing like the physical stuff, and I was just attracted to that. I grew up watching the Three Stooges, and I just immediately connected with the Three Stooges. So that was a big thing for me. And so I did this production, and I was coming up with these characters and doing pratfalls and fun stuff like that. And this gentleman by the name of Chris Shelton, great guy. He's like, you should audition for Clown College. And I kind of laughed, and I was like, there's a school for idiots? I didn't know what this was. I'd been to the circus once in my life as a kid in Philadelphia. So we drove up to the Meadowlands in New Jersey where the Ringling Brothers was. And I just kind of showed up and went through the paces, this thing they set up, audition, and I improvised, and they had me improvise some more. And I didn't think anything of it. And so I got a phone call like a week later from the dean of Clown College, a gentleman by the name of Steve Smith, who, if you ever met this gentleman, he's like Willy Wonka, and balloons and rainbows and everything, just, Dr. Seuss, everything rolled into one. And he convinced me to come to another audition in Philadelphia and met me in person. And I did what he asked me to do. And then I got a call, and he said, hey, send in the application as soon as possible. And then I did, and I got in. And then I didn't know how difficult it was, because, like I said, my background's theater, and that's what I wanted to do. I got accepted to a school on Broadway for singing and acting and dancing. And next thing you know, this goofy kid from New Jersey is asked to, drive up to Baraboo, Wisconsin. And I didn't know how difficult it was, because at the time, thousands and thousands of people auditioned. And that year, only 25 students were accepted. And out of those 25, only 4 of us got contracts to tour with Ringling Brothers.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did you work with them?
I was with them from 1994 to 98. And Ringling has 2 units. They have the blue unit and the red unit. So it's each tour goes out for 2 years.
Yeah.
The first year is your big city tour, they call it. The second year is the rodeo route. So the big city tours, you're playing Madison Square Garden, and wonderful, huge, arenas. And then, the second year, you're playing smaller venues like Raleigh, North Carolina, or,
Andy Griffith territory.
Yeah, but like, there's a lot of forgetful nights that I had in Kentucky. A lot of too much fun when I was there.
I understand.
But it was a wonderful experience. But I like to, like when I teach or I'm interviewed, I just like, I really want to stress that Ringling in the circus kind of saved me. Because at the time, even though I was doing a few productions around Philadelphia area, tri-state area, I had nothing. So I drove a car from Philadelphia to Baraboo, Wisconsin, which is the original home of the 7 Ringling Brothers. And I let my car insurance run out. I lived on peanut butter and jelly for 2 months. I had no money. And if I didn't get a contract, I was basically homeless. So yeah, circus saved me. got a contract, and 2 weeks later, I'm in Center Ring in Chicago, Illinois.
I think that's something that's a misconception with most performing artists, because I mean, being a live entertainer and performing artist is very, very strenuous and very hard, and
Mhm.
the need to do it comes from the soul. It's not something that, uh I don't know, it's not a normal gig. So the things you're willing to do, the things you're willing to lose or whatever, is a lot more, because than what you would in a normal everyday lifestyle type of environment. It's there's a lot of limitations that you can't live a normal life, you can't do normal things, and
Yeah.
you can't work a 9 to 5, you can't go home and sleep in your own bed, you can't do all those things. And I think a lot of people have that misconception of like, well, here's quote unquote, here's Jim Carrey, he's multi-millionaire, blah blah blah, rich, super famous, everybody knows him, whatever, but like, he slept in his car too, like, so that's not
Yeah.
people don't realize, a lot of live performance entertainers go through more hardships and more strenuous times, and a lot shorter amount of time to get where they're at, to for you to see that they're successful than most people do in their entire careers or lives in a normal world. And I've
Yeah.
lived in the normal world and the live performance world, and I can talk about both, and it's scary. You find a lot more you have a lot more no's than yeses in the live performance industry, and there's always a roadblock or a hurdle, and then all of a sudden, the first time ever in the history of the world, you hit coronavirus, and then that's a hurdle like that the entertainment industry has never experienced any type of hurdle like that. That's just completely shut it down, and you can't think of like, oh well, I can go and do this other method or do this other thing or whatever. Like I can skate by doing this. Like if you watch the documentary from like Barnum and stuff, like you see all these crazy things he did. He went through a lot, and the whole Ringling Brothers Circus, like they all went through crazy stuff, and they did some stuff that, yeah, it's out of this world kind of ridiculous things, but those options don't exist right now. Like
Yeah.
you can't even do the negative things that you shouldn't do to skate by. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's just no options right now. So that's a crazy thing.
Yeah. It's like you being an entertainer, and there's a lot of hills and valleys.
Yeah.
A lot of hills and valleys, and you got to have thick skin in this business. And the thing that's kind of crazy now, and after the circus, I moved to Hollywood, California, and I stopped doing circus for a little bit, and I got back into acting, and I did a lot of commercials and stunt work, and worked on some movies and such. And you get used to no, which is fine. That's where the thick skin comes up, the hills and valleys. That's fine. But when we're living in a time now where it's not a matter of no, it's a matter of we can't.
Yeah.
So it's not even a rejection thing to deal with. Sorry, we just can't right now. So it's very interesting, and I really hope that when at least some of this calms down, people are going to be that much more hungry for live entertainment.
Yeah.
Instead of being stuck on their phone. I mean, circus is such a true art form. You can't fake it when you're 20 feet in the air, or you're juggling or something like that. You can't fake that. You can't edit that. It's live entertainment in your face. People, you train for years and years, and the physicality of it. I just hope that when this calms down, people have a real need and hunger and love for this art form again.
Yeah, I agree, because I think with the way the world has been, with the technological advances of the world, live entertainment has, especially the circus, which doesn't really, unfortunately, I never went to the circus. I never got to see Ringling Brothers. None of that. So,
Wasn't that good?
I got to see, things on TV. That was it. So like
Yeah.
I wanted to run away with the circus my whole life, but I never even got to go to see the circus. So, but that that art form has become watered down and less appreciated over the years due to technology and just the overabundance of people being just overwhelmed with the stuff all the time, because you can see the craziest things you've ever saw on YouTube any second, on Facebook any second. And so I'm hoping that after all this, maybe that'll be like a resurgence from all that, because people are going to be tired of looking at their screens because they had to, because they were told they had to.
Well, we're doing a thing, when cell phones started to become, the big thing, and now you can watch a full-length movie or anything on a 2-inch screen, and it's just like, well, I don't have to get up from the couch. I can just watch it on the phone, but it doesn't capture the magic of live entertainment. And, I applaud these performers that are trying to pivot and do stuff online, but that's the one factor that's been the biggest difficulty for at least a number of my friends who are doing the online stuff, is that immediate reaction from an audience, and you feed off that energy. And the type of performance that I do, you saw the little stuff I was improvising. I was just pivoting and going with, okay, they're laughing at this, but I can improvise with this guy, and this person is smiling, so I'll go mess with this person. It's not like that, doing a Zoom show,
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's
incredibly creative, and I think that's wonderful. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of art will come out of this after things settle a bit and they lift some of the bans, and
Yeah. I'm excited to see, what develops out of everything, because, that's in the end, everything's going to, there's going to be a lot of positive that comes out of it. And I believe that, but it's, there's going to be a lot of negative to make that positive. And it's scary. Some people I don't think are going to make it, live entertainment industry. I read some things, Cirque du Soleil is talking about filing bankruptcy. And that's just, that's crazy.
It's a juggernaut. Ringling closed its doors some time ago. A few years back, but when you grow up or you're a part of that world, it's a big family. Like, a lot of the Ringling people know the Cirque people, and the Cirque people, it's all, it's like a big family. And before this all went down, like a week or 2 weeks before this all went down, I actually flew to Vegas to work with a magician friend of mine, David Gaddy, who I mentioned to you before. And we were putting a show together called the Magic Hotel, and we're all set to do a tour. And I just, walking up and down the strip after our rehearsals, and just had a great time in Vegas. And it was just fun to see old circus friends and catching up. And then I get home, and the friends that I just met were sending me pictures of the strip completely blacked out. And all the Cirque shows that they worked on, they're like, we don't know what's going on. So it's a pretty sad state of affairs. But like you mentioned, it'll be an interesting thing that happens after this.
Oh yeah, it's for sure going to be interesting. It's crazy. So so outside of coronavirus, so obviously coronavirus is taking the world by storm, and that's what everybody's talking about, and that's why I created this podcast. It's
all my feeds, Instagram, Facebook. It's
what else is there to talk about? That's the only thing that's happening right now. So it's
children that are going to be, in 9 months, how many kids are going to be born because of this?
I saw a thing. They were calling this previous kids were like the millennials or something. They were going to call these kids the coronials or something like that. And I was like, I saw that and I was like, oh my goodness. And I believe that'll happen. Like I believe it. So it's,
what's your son's name? Rona Jr.?
yeah, exactly. It's a weird, it's going to be funny. It's different. So what, you've done a lot of things in your career, and like I mentioned prior to this, it's broadcast on WCYN here in Central Kentucky. So we will have to take a commercial break here before too long, but you've done a lot of things, and you went back and forth. You said you were in Hollywood. You kind of quit, doing the circus stuff for a while. But what do you think is your most cherished or highest achievement, something you're most proud of in your entire, entertainment career, whether it be Hollywood or circus or whatever?
I don't know if there is a greatest thing. I think, you can answer that probably also. As a performer, you're always looking for that next thing, that next taste of, satisfaction. I think there's a thing inside performers like us. We're always looking for the next thing, and we just love that feedback from an audience. So, it's the hills and valleys,
I agree totally.
I've done some shows and some movies where it's, you take a step back and you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. This is amazing. I worked on the movie The Grinch with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
And, I remember one day on the set, they called me up and they hired a bunch of circus people from Ringling and Cirque. And then at one point, Ron Howard called me over, the director of The Grinch. He called me over and he's just like, hey, I need you to help me. And he loved the circus people. He was having a blast. And he just kind of pointed to this stairwell for one scene. And he's just like, I just need you to improvise with a broom. And so I'm doing all these clown bits with a broom. And then at one point I stop and I look, and behind the camera is Tom Hanks, Tony Curtis, Garth Brooks, and there was like a few other people. And I'm just like, this is so bizarre that I'm doing a movie, but yet I'm still doing clowning circus bits. And, I'm meeting all these wonderful people. And so, yeah, stuff like that. It's constant up and down, up and down. I've been fortunate with this kind of lifestyle. The circus has taken me all around the world multiple times. So there's no one definitive thing that I can put my finger on and go, that's the highlight. I think there's still great things to come.
Yeah. I've always said that it's, there's a lot of downs, and they're that happens more than the ups, but so the up and down, but the ups are really high. Like the ups are up, what I'm saying? The ups are, and it's something you can't experience anywhere else, because it's just those downs are so, it's hard to get there. And then when you get there, it's better than you thought it was going to be, or it's further forward than you thought you were going to be when you started attempting it, or whatever. But then it just makes you realize that there's so much more. So then you gotta reach for that next level, so you're trying to get to the top step on the ladder, and you get to the top step, and then it's like, oh wow, this ladder's a lot longer than I thought it was. There's a lot more up there, so I got to go farther. And I think that's probably for me as a performer, the most, every time you do succeed is more payoff and more, gives you self-worth and accomplishment than you could have predicted or imagined prior. And it's a learning experience, and it's an experience all the way, the entire time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the true sign of a true professional, is you take that experience, you grow and grow, and you push it forward.
Agreed. Well, it looks like we're going to have to take a quick commercial break, like I previously mentioned. This is broadcast live on WCYN 101.3 FM here in Central Kentucky. We're interviewing Jim Walton, former Ringling Brothers circus clown. We'll be right back, guys.
And we're back to the Quarantainment Podcast. Here's your host, Reed Masterson.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Quarantainment, the socially distant podcast. I'm hanging out here with my new friend, Mr. Jim Walton. Met him back in February or something like that. I don't know, 1 year, one time. I don't know. It's days are running together all the time now, so I don't know what's happening anymore. But yeah, hanging out here with Jim Walton. Jim, you with me, man, right?
Yes, I'm with you.
All right, brother. Well, we touched on the coronavirus. We touched on your career in the past. We've touched on, kind of how it's affected you, how it's affected the entertainment industry, which is kind of what this podcast is all about. But one of the main things when I created this podcast was to give hope to people that maybe didn't have hope, especially in the entertainment industry, and how people are using the time to be more creative than ever. And I know I've seen on what I like to call the Facebook. I've seen on the Facebook you're doing some pretty creative stuff that, from first impressions, I wouldn't expect from you with the sculpting and stuff like that. So tell me what's up with that. How did you start that?
Well, I've always been an artist. I've always, as a kid, drawing and painting and growing up. That was a big thing of my life, just cartooning and all that. And then. Yeah, it was just a hobby for years. And then some years, I don't know, maybe like 4 years ago or so, I was working cruise ships. And my agent kind of messed up the scheduling. And I ended up having like 2 or 3 months off in the middle of a summer, which actually was great. Because I was just going and going and going, working ships. And so I turned my basement into an art studio and just started cranking out some big paintings. And I just started putting it out there, posting some things. And then a gentleman called me up and he's like, "Hey, I own this kind of, I don't know, it was like a cool hipster kind of coffee shop place where they hang local artists up." He's like, "Can you hang some stuff up?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And he's like, "Would you sell any of it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, okay." So I took a bunch of big paintings and hung them up, and I get a phone call a few weeks later, and they're like, "Hey, what do you want to do with this money?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "You sold like 6 paintings." And I was like, "What?" So it kind of, kicked me in the butt a little bit to jump back into the artwork. So yeah, the stuff you saw online, I used to sculpt a bit. So I started picking that back up. So this is kind of like a latest thing.
Yeah, I saw that. It's freaking amazing.
Doing kind of like some fantasy stuff. A lot of airbrush work with the clay work. So, and like I told you before we started talking, I'm waiting on 7 pounds of clay to be delivered. So because I'm getting a lot of people calling me up and like, "Hey, could you make this for me? Or could you make that?" And so it's been fun because certainly not going to go out and perform right now. So we need to pivot. So
yeah,
it's fun to jump back into the artwork and be creative like that again.
Yeah, staying creative, I think, is the most important thing. And it's, I've kind of learned, like, one of the worst things for me as an entertainer is that magic was a hobby, right? So it's fun, I'm a professional illusionist. That's what I've done I've been full-time self-employed for 15 years. And,
yeah.
And, but prior to working, prior to it being a career, which is the dream, you don't actually know what that is. You don't know what that dream is. Doing it for a living, you don't know what that means until it happens. So nobody tells you what it is. So the hobby goes away, and now it's a necessity, and now it's not as fun. So you have to do things. I'm forced to work on this. I'm forced to do this. I'm forced to whatever, because that's now the expectation that I've built for myself. So now I don't have these things, and I've used like multiple outlets throughout my career to develop new things. I do graphic design.
Your stuff is wonderful, by the way.
Thanks, man. Thanks. So like I start all those things out as a hobby, But the problem is that I pick hobbies that will transition into helping me, that then become required. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden I don't have any hobbies anymore, because now it's like, okay, well, people pay me to do graphic design. People pay me to do magic. I started a photography hobby last year. Now people are paying me to do photography. People are like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And I'm like, so I don't pick up a camera anymore. And it's like, I want to do something that doesn't translate into my business, that I can keep up with. But it's hard, because when you do these full-time gigs like we do, having an actual hobby is very hard. So like, to do something that doesn't translate into being what you do all the time, because we work 24/7, 365 prior to coronavirus. You can't, hobbies are hard, because you always have something else going on, as you well know. So it's whether it's traveling or whatever, people see a 1 hour show, they don't realize that it took 30 hours to do it, and that it took 3 years to book it, and it took 8,000 emails and then whatever else to get to that 1 hour show, and that's, so it's those hobbies don't exist. So like, I've been trying to pick up new hobbies, which is kind of how we met. Like, I good friends with Nils Dunkert, fabulous juggler, obviously one of the best in the world.
He's okay. I mean,
Yeah,
he's all right.
I'm getting better than him, so it's no big deal now. No, but I picked up juggling. I love it. It's going to end up being in our show. My wife is turning into a crazy juggler, but now I have, because of Nils, I have every juggling prop you can imagine. So like, I have a freaking unicycle. Like, I don't know the last time I rode a bicycle. So like, I don't like, I've got all these things that he's just like, hey, I have extra, like, here, like, I don't need this. He gave me a 3-foot unicycle. He's like, I ride a 6-foot. I don't need a 3-foot. I'm like, I can't even juggle yet. Like, it's, what are you talking about? I don't need a unicycle. I have cigar boxes, unicycles, juggling pins, actual pins. Like, I have juggling sticks, juggling clubs, you name it, knives, whatever.
Yeah. I've got props in my closet that I that are still, the price tag is on it. As a circus performer, you're like, I need this, I need that. That's awesome. Let's do this. But I will say about the artwork, though, is that it's so satisfying. Like, I don't know, maybe it's because a little bit of ADHD, or, the manic in me, being a circus clown or a physical comedian. I can sit for hours laser focused on airbrushing and, or doing the clay work, or working on a painting. So that's been a great outlet for me. And it's on a positive note, with all this craziness going on, it was kind of nice to just stop for a little bit.
Yeah.
Take and reset.
Yeah. When it first hit us, that was what I wasn't, I didn't look at the end result negative effects that it was having on us. I was just like, okay, well, like, I don't actually have to work today. I don't actually have to pull a 28-hour day today. I can do whatever. So we started working on, I started reading books again. I haven't read books in probably 15 years. So like, I quit reading books. I just got out of it. So I started reading books again. I started exercising again. I'm losing weight again. Hallelujah. But I'm doing all these things. A lot of people are like, after coronavirus, I'm going to be so fat. And I'm like, golly, during coronavirus, I'm losing weight. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause I'm getting to go walk again. I juggle and walk at the same time. I'm getting like double the exercise. So it's, but things that I didn't do because they were, quote unquote, less important at the time. They're not, but that's the way the lifestyle is, because the things that make you happy usually aren't the things that necessarily make you money. And when you're living like we do, you live paycheck to paycheck, and those paychecks.
It's important to take that step back and like reevaluate.
Yeah.
I know so many performers that it's just like go, 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 and sure, I'm the same way, but I've realized like, it's okay to take a breath. It's okay to slow down. It's okay. Like when I teach classes on physical comedy, the new clowns or new performers, they constantly feel like they got to be moving. And I'm like, you know what? Some of the most important things about physical comedy is the space in between.
Yeah.
It's okay to stop. It's okay to look at the audience. It's okay. So maybe this is a long look at the audience, and they're looking back at you, and it's like, I think it's very important to kind of slow down and reevaluate. And I really think there's going to be some incredible art that comes out of this.
I agree 100%. And I'm excited to see it from that aspect. So it's exciting to see. And a lot of people are doing I'm already seeing some crazy cool things. I mean, you're sculpting, like has been magnificent, so.
Well, that was one of the frustrating things. I worked cruise ships on and off for 13 years. And so my big thing was, it's just crazy travel. You got your suitcase with you and you're dragging it and get on the ship and bam, 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 you're doing shows and it's just manic and go, go, go. And then you get home and it's like, you just want to take a breath and you're like, do I have time to do a hobby or something like that? So,
yeah.
You can't travel with your paints or clay and stuff like that. You're still creating art on the ship because at least for me, I'm improvising and I'm coming up with new bits, writing new material while I'm on board. But it's been nice to just come home and I'm not living out of a suitcase. It's just like, I don't think there's going to be any cruises for quite a while. So
yeah, I don't think so either.
And I feel for those crew members because a number of them are dear, sweet friends and they work incredibly hard, and a number of them are stranded. And so my heart goes out to them, but I'm pivoting. I'm enjoying the art stuff and I'm pivoting, and I'm helping with a new company. My girlfriend just started a new company called Belladonna Botanicals. And we make high-end artisanal soap, and it's a whole lifestyle. And you can check that out on Instagram. And so, I'm doing a lot of the artwork for that, and we're just creating some fun content. And we're enjoying doing it. It's not like, oh crap, we got to do this. We got to do this. It's like, what? Let's do something we enjoy, and we're having a blast doing this.
Yeah, no, that's where we're at with some of the things that we're doing as well. So it's definitely in some aspects it's very relieving to be able to step back. There's a lot of stressfulness to it too because it's crazy, but there is positive in it, and I hope a lot of people get to see that. So we've got this. Go ahead.
I miss performing. I miss performing. I miss the feel of the crowd. I miss building props and going out there and just kind of doing my thing, the manic, kind of rubber-faced, new age vaudeville stuff. I miss that tremendously. And I hope I can get back to it soon. I miss teaching classes and writing and I'm writing, but it's seeing that end result of writing on a stage.
I understand that. We're also writing and doing stuff and developing things, but we're developing things for a live stage. So it makes it, you don't know when those things are going to happen. And a lot of our performances and stuff are developed and perfected on stage. There's a lot of rehearsals that go into it, but it's the live experience that actually creates it. So
if you need a magical thumb tip, I can mail one to you.
That's like, I don't even know how to do that thing where you like pull off your thumb. I don't know how to do that.
Devil's hanky. I'll send that to you.
Yeah. So we've got this new segment we're doing. It's called, and I'm going to try and say this because it's a tongue twister for me, but it's called Ashton Asks, and it's my better half asking you questions. I don't know what she said, but she's got something she'd like to know. So here we go.
Okay.
Hey, Jim. I hope you are doing well. I just wanted to let you know that I had an absolute blast watching your performance earlier this year at the IJA Festival. You were just amazing. But a couple questions that I do have are, out of your many different talents, what is your favorite thing to perform? And what has been the most challenging thing for you to learn how to perform? I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Good questions. My favorite thing to perform. I don't know if I have a favorite. My specialty was always physical comedy. You know, I grew up watching like Jerry Lewis, Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. I remember getting when I was younger some DVD tapes of them of the old Colgate Hour. This is way before our time, but just the chemistry between them and I know some people think Jerry Lewis, the Jerry Lewis telethon and all that stuff, but when he was younger, the guy was a comedic genius, and I would watch these tapes over and over, and not so much, I know a number of clowns that love like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, and I love those movies, but he was the one that kind of, wow, that is so much fun. And again, like I mentioned earlier, the Three Stooges. So I think my favorite thing is my favorite performing style is just that physical comedy. That's what I love to do. I think it was an advantage when I was younger. I used to be a break dancer.
That doesn't surprise me. After seeing you in Atlanta, that makes total sense.
Like your body movements, I mean, I'm an old guy now, but it's like that kind of style. I mean, remember Beat? This is probably before your time too. Beat Street, all those old school breakdance movies. Like
I know them, but it is before my time. So it's
that was a step up when I went to clown college to just know your body and yourself movement. So that's probably my favorite performance. I don't list myself as a juggler per se. I can juggle. I could do 5 balls. I could do, one of those. I could do everything, just not a master of one,
And I think that's where the physical comedy comes in to, like, well, for instance, when we watched you in Atlanta, you did 5 balls, you did, and you unintentionally dropped, a few times. And there were some drops that were intentional, but the physical comedy aspect of it, the ability to have control over your character and stuff like that doesn't matter, because what I remember is that hilariousness, that character, that brings all of it together. And you could have dropped every one of them and it would have been fine because it made sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, who cares? Like, it was hilarious. And where you got the jugglers that are more I'm too cool for school, they don't have that aspect. So if they drop, then they sucked.
Reed, how dare you? My juggling perfection. No. I learned a long time ago. I used to get so nervous before I went out on stage that, okay, this juggling performance has to be perfect. I can't drop. And then I remember like an old circus guy when I was in Ringling, and he's like, he did an act with like 1 ball, 3 ball, and then he built up the 3 balls. And it wasn't about the juggling, and it was about the character work, that's one of my specialties. Is just like, it's not about the juggling. And hey, if you drop, who cares? Find bits to make it funny.
Yeah.
And move the act forward and to move the character forward. It's like, I dropped, big deal. How do you dig your way out of it and make it fun and make it enjoyable? And there are a number of times when I do shows, I will drop on purpose, because like if I want an audience member to, I dropped, I can't pick it up, my back, can you help me? And then they come up on stage like, hey, thanks for volunteering,
Exactly.
You find comedy out of that and have fun with that.
I think that's one of my favorite things about performing is being able to react on the fly and being able to improvise, because I used to be very hardcore with things going wrong or whatever, and I would
spiral out of control, and then your mind starts racing. You're like, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect. You know what? It doesn't have to be perfect, as long as you've rehearsed it and you know what the next bit is, and you move forward and you have fun.
No, I agree totally. So we're running a little short on time. I mean, we're not short on time, but like it's, we're about to run out of time. So is there anything that you want to say to anybody? Any tips, any advice on being creative or surviving this madness currently, or just anything you want to say for that matter? You want to plug any social media, anything like that?
Well, I mean, first off, just push forward, keep creative. I mean, it's going to be a while till we live performance, We just created a thing. We have a Facebook group with a bunch of Ringling Brothers clowns. So we did a Ringling Brothers video where all the clowns, we kind of each took like 3 to 5 seconds and we created a thing. So look for it on Facebook. It's called the Pandemic Video, Coney Island, from Coney Island Chris. Belladonna Botanical, that's what I've been working with, creating art with. You can check that out on Instagram, and I mean, Jim Walton on Facebook. But if everyone stays, wash your hands, be positive. I love you, brother.
All right, Jim, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a great interview, guys. You've been watching Quarantainment, the socially distant podcast. I'm Reed Masterson, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Quarantainment, a socially distant podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, retweet, share, comment, and anything else you can do from at least 6 feet away. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay home, and above all else, stay creative. Join us next week. Same time, same place, same host, new interviews. For more info on the entire Quarantainment series of events, visit mastersonsmagic.com.